From the WATE.com Digital Center, answering your legal questions. This is Ask Isaacs. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
And Jeff McClain, our executive producer. It's good to see you, everyone. And we are talking about the big story, and that is state lawmakers cleared the way for letting some teachers carry guns in school. So you are here to help us walk through every aspect of this, and there is a lot to this.
Well, there is a lot to this legislation that just passed the House. It had already passed the Senate, and it's going to the governor's desk. He does not veto it within 10 days. It will become a law. Governor Lee, just by way of background, has never vetoed a bill that has come to him in this capacity. So here's what's happened. When this becomes law, teachers, under a lot of different circumstances, after they jump through a lot of different hoops, will be permitted to conceal carry at school property and in the classroom.
Well, and Greg, let's talk about some of those hoops, because I feel like that's really where the particulars matter so much, and it's a lot like, it's essentially the same thing as a school resource officer would be required to go through.
Well, it is, but it's not, because school resource officers have been trained, that they're post-certified. They've received training for the local sheriff's department, etc. But here's what I think the legislature may have gotten hoodooed in trying to protect the public from the people that carry the guns, because there are a lot of people involved in the decision to allow a specific individual teacher to conceal carry. For example, to be eligible to conceal carry on school property, you have to have an enhanced handgun carry permit. That means you've had 40 hours of enhanced training. You have to have a background check by both the TBI and the FBI. That has to come back. You have to have a psychological assessment for someone to say that you are mentally fit to carry a gun. Then you have to be approved by the school superintendent, by the principal of your school, and the head of the local law enforcement agency. And after all of that, you will be entitled to conceal carry at your school. But think about that. You know, the legislature and the governor think they're giving teachers the power to defend themselves, defend children, but it's not their decision. It's going to be the decision of the school superintendents and the principals on whether a particular teacher can conceal carry.
You know, let's talk about this fact. A lot of people are acting like this is something new. This is new to the whole country. But Tennessee is joining a handful of other states that have this law, but there are so many different tenets to each law. Each one is very different.
Yes, and we actually dug this up. I dug it up to make a map here. Mm-hmm. But the information on this map, the ones you see highlighted in blue, those are the states with some sort of teacher carry permit law. Now, this is the information on this is from the Giffords Law Center on gun policy. Gabrielle Giffords, the lawmaker from Arizona, who's survived a shooting, but it's vague. There's so many caveats that every single one of these has an asterisk beside of it. Some states, there are teachers, but teachers may carry a gun, but they may carry a gun as part of some other kind of program. Some places they call it a school guardian or something like that. Others, there's a variety of, like we were mentioning, the hoops to jump through, and those really do vary wildly. In some places, they're a little more permissive, but those policies get applied to other people as well. There are places where there are members of the community who can be brought in with the qualifications. There are places where the law really covers mostly storage of firearms on campus grounds, and so it's already a patchwork. I mean, obviously you can see from that map. Greg, I'd like to see if you could kind of walk us through. I don't know. Do you think this is going to be something that school systems are going to be attracted to? Are they going to want to jump into this?
I think they're going to run from it.
We're already hearing from Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville, Davidson County has said no. Knox
heard from
County
Knox
has
County.
said we're kind of reviewing it.
Yeah.
We're thinking about it. But here, let's look at the scenarios. You are a teacher that has jumped through all these hoops, and you are concealed carrying in the classroom. A student comes at another student or you with a knife. Are you entitled to use deadly force to protect a third party if they come at you? Do you have the green light to use deadly force in the classroom if there's an active shooter? Do you call 911, or are you supposed to protect your classroom?
Yeah, what do you do with the kids? Do you start using that gun?
Right. And then if you're
All
the parents,
kinds of
and God
scenarios.
forbid there's another school shooting or a tragedy, and you don't act appropriately, and you are the teacher that has a firearm, are you going to be sued or prosecuted?
We wanted to talk more about that, about liability. What if the gun goes off accidentally? I mean, there are all kinds of scenarios that can get somebody in trouble.
And think about this. Remember, we've talked about this, Lori, time and time again. Just because Tennessee's an open carry state, it doesn't mean that you can use your gun to break the law, and it's against the law to brandish a weapon. So if the teacher says, I want you all to sit down, be quiet, and they put their hand on their hip or show that they've got a gun, did they brandish a firearm and commit 28 counts of aggravated assault?
Yeah.
Now, I think the intent is obviously, it's well intended, and I think you have some school districts in Tennessee and elsewhere that are out of control. You have people in Virginia where a 6-year-old brings a gun to school, shoots a teacher. You have some inner city schools where, the violence is at an epidemic level. So I see the intent, but I don't think they've thought through what the teacher that is concealed carry, what they're supposed to do once they get the gun.
Well, let's take a moment now and hear from our state lawmakers, because we really do have both sides of the issue. First, with State Representative Jason Zachary, who talks about the need for certain schools to have this kind of protection.
And it's interesting that, Greg, you brought up urban schools, because his is actually pointed a different direction, as you'll see.
It's important for people in Knox County to know this has been on the books since 2016 with no incidents, and we have teachers carrying right now today. This particular bill puts tighter restrictions on them, puts more requirements on them, makes sure everybody knows that the people who need to know who is carrying.
It's ridiculous to put teachers in this situation. They already do about 4 jobs, and they get paid poorly for one. They're teachers, they're nurses, they're social workers, they're counselors, and now we're asking them to also be security.
Rural areas that have no SROs.
Yeah, his effectively, there've been this, they put a tremendous amount of money, the state did last year, into putting an SRO in every district, but that's not every single school or multiple campuses. And if you are a far outlying rural community, you may not have those kind of resources, but you probably have some teacher who is willing to go through with this training. So that's his argument. Now, of course, you also heard there from a state representative, Gloria Johnson, a teacher, and she, points out that this is something that's a tremendous burden, and she would also, I'm sure, point out she went through a school shooting at Central High School, and so to expect them to respond, at least in her opinion, seems to be a lot of an extra burden to shoulder for teachers who, and
they're already overworked, and that's her point.
And you're talking about training and insurance. I don't know that the school systems would have to set that up.
And it's interesting, and Jason Zachary seems to think that knowing someone's carrying a gun is going to serve as a deterrent. But if you look at the bill, obviously he's one of the people that voted for the bill. If you read it, the fact that someone's been approved and or carrying, concealed carrying, is not public record.
Parents aren't required to be notified.
No, they cannot be notified. The name and information for the person authorized to carry shall not be open for public inspection.
Do they have the right to know, though?
Under this bill, they do not. So if I'm at school, my children are there, I want to know, are they in a classroom with a teacher that is armed? I want to know who the teacher is, when they were trained, etc. But this is all confidential. Also, it's interesting, teachers are not allowed to carry at sporting events such as gymnasiums, football stadiums, etc., and they're not allowed to have the firearm on their person if they're doing a situation involving disciplining a student. I mean, a case I was involved with, it wasn't a teacher being armed, but student Kenny Bartley had a gun, and they brought him in the office and allowed him, they all kind of played around with the gun, give me the gun, is the gun loaded? And, unfortunately, people lost their lives. So, when you have when you mix students, children, and firearms, it can be a dangerous combination. And see, legally, I don't know that the legislature knew what they were creating, but at the end of the day, and Jeff, that map was really insightful, because when I was researching this spot, I was overwhelmed like Lori was, at how many states, we put that back on the screen, have teachers that go armed. I mean, it's really incredible. But having said that, the power of this bill is not going to be where Governor Lee approves it in 10 days. It's going to be your local school superintendent. So I think what you're going to see, which is kind of the pulse of this country, is if you're a school superintendent and you don't approve it, I think all heck is going to happen, and you're going to be subject to protest, pressure, etc. So now, if you are a school board, school superintendent, or a principal, and you deny someone's right to carry, I think it's going to create a firestorm. But let's look at what the most important thing that this bill is designed to do: protect the students and protect the teachers. And I see a lot of pros and I see a lot of cons, but I don't know that we're seeing a lot of answers.
All right, let's talk more at 5:30, and we'd like to hear from you on this as well. So let us know. Send an email to askisaacs@wate.com. I want to hear what you think about it.